So today's topic is the nervous system. Neurology is the study of the nervous system. Nervous system maintains homeostasis of the human body. The nervous system has two parts. It has two basic tissues. One is the nervous tissue and the other is the connective tissue. Neuron, we all know, is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. This is the structure of a neuron, and there are over 100 billion neurons in the brain. So what is nervous tissue? Nervous tissue comprises of neuron, which is the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system. It is an excitable cell. It has excitability as well as conductivity. What is excitability? That the neurons are able to respond to a stimulus. So they are excitable. And what is conductivity? That the neurons are able to conduct many signals. So they have the property of conductivity. The various parts of the neurons are the soma or the cell body, the axon, and the dendrites. So the neuron has three parts. Soma or cell body is also called the perikaryon. It contains the nucleus and the nucleolus, and it receives information coming from the dendrites. The dendrites are the fibers, the efferent fibers, which bring impulses towards the cell body, and they contain nisl granules and microtubules. Axon is a single structure that is going out of the cell body. This is an axon. The point from where the axon arises is called the axon hillock, and this is the part which is devoid of myelination. As you can see in this picture, this whitish structure is the myelin sheath. The axons may be myelinated or unmyelinated. In this picture, we can see that this axon is myelinated. Myelinated fibers have a special property that the impulse conduction is faster as compared to unmyelinated fibers. Nervous tissue is in the form of two forms. It is either it can be a gray matter or it can be a white matter. In this picture, we can see this H-shaped structure is the gray matter, and this surrounding white structure is the white matter. So the gray matter has the cell bodies of the neurons, and the white matter has the fibers, the axons, and maybe the dendrites. So what is the major difference between the gray matter and the white matter? That the gray matter has the cell body of a neuron, and the white matter has fibers of the neurons. And why is gray matter gray? Because it has no myelination. And why the white matter is white? Because the axon is myelinated and the myelination appears white to the eye. Another difference is that in the spinal cord, the gray matter lies in the center. It is surrounded by the white matter. But in case of the brain, the gray matter is in the periphery, as you can see in this picture, and the white matter is in the center. So the arrangement of the gray matter and the white matter is reverse in brain and spinal cord. The gray matter has, as I've told you before, the cell body, dendritic tissue, and the supporting tissue, and it is devoid of myelination, hence it is gray. And the white matter has the nerve fibers, which may be myelinated, and they appear white. What is a synapse? Synapse is that area where one neuron ends on another neuron, and it is responsible for transmission of impulses. For example, this is the ending of one neuron and this is the start of another neuron, and here there is a synaptic junction being formed and responsible for transfer of impulses. Now we'll briefly discuss the classification of the nervous system. The nervous system is divided into a central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is further subdivided into brain, as I've discussed earlier, and the spinal cord. And the peripheral nervous system has motor neurons as well as sensory neurons. Then there is the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is further subdivided into sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. The anatomical classification of nervous system is such that peripheral nervous system has the nerves and the ganglia. Nerves are composed of the axons and they are held together by connective tissue. So nerves have axons surrounded by the connective tissue. Surrounding layer of nerves are three: the epineurium, the perineurium, and the endoneurium. Nerves connect the effectors and the effectors to the CNS. There are two types of nerves. One are the cranial nerves and one are the spinal nerves. The cranial nerves are connected to the brain and they are 12 in number. And the spinal nerves are connected to the spinal cord and they are 31 pairs, 1 to 8 in cervical segment, 1 to 12 in the thoracic segment, 1 to 5 in the lumbar region, sacral in 1 to 5 and coccygeal 1 only. The cranial nerves are 12. The first cranial nerve is called the olfactory nerve. The second one is the optic nerve. Third is the oculomotor nerve. Fourth is the trochlear nerve. Fifth is the trigeminal nerve. Sixth is the abducens nerve. Seventh one is facial nerve. Eighth is the vestibulocochlear nerve. Ninth is glossopharyngeal nerve. 10th is the vagus nerve. 11th is the accessory nerve. And 12th and the last one is the hypoglossal nerve. Now the peripheral nerves have two parts. One is the afferent fibers that brings information in, and the other is the efferent fibers that take information out. The next component of the peripheral nervous system after the nerves is the ganglia. What are ganglia? Ganglia are the collections of localized cell bodies and they are surrounded by the connective tissue. Ganglia are of two types. One is sensory, one is autonomic. The sensory are associated with the dorsal root of the spinal nerve and autonomic are divided into parasympathetic and sympathetic ganglia. Now we'll briefly discuss the classification of neurons. Functionally, neurons are divided into receptor neurons, interneurons, and effector neurons. And morphologically, they are divided into bipolar neurons, unipolar neurons, and the multipolar neurons. The supporting cells of the peripheral nervous system are two. One is the satellite cells, also called the capsule cells. They surround the neurons. And the other is the Schwann cells, also called the neuroleukocytes, and they are responsible for myelination of the peripheral nervous system. So the supporting cells of the peripheral nervous system are satellite cells and the Schwann cells. The supporting cells of the central nervous system are five. The first one is the glial cells. The glial cells can be microglia or the macroglia. Next is the astrocytes. They are star-shaped. They end on the capillaries. They have perivascular feet that are attached to the capillaries and they are star-shaped. Next is the oligodendrocytes. Oligodendrocytes are responsible for myelination of the central nervous system in place of the Schwann cells, which are responsible for myelination of the peripheral nervous system. The next type of cells are the ependymal cells. They are shaped like this and they line the ventricular system, the ventricular cavities which contain the central cerebrospinal fluid. Now, functionally, the neurons are classified into the receptor neurons, effector neurons, and the interneurons. First, we'll discuss the receptor neurons. Receptor neurons are also called the efferent neurons. The dendrites act as efferent neurons. They transmit impulses to the cell body, and then the impulse is the information is received inside the body through the receptor neuron. And the example is the olfactory receptor cells of the olfactory epithelium. Next is the interneuron. Interneuron connects the receptor neuron and the effector neuron. Last one is the effector neuron or the motor neuron. This is the one, axons act as effector neurons and they carry signals from the CNS to the effector cells that are the muscles or glands. Morphologically, the neurons are classified into bipolar, unipolar, and multipolar. The bipolar, in this picture, we can see that this is the cell body and two poles. There are two poles coming out. One is this one, which gives the dendrites, and this is the second pole, which acts as a axon. So this is a bipolar neuron, and the example is the ganglia of cranial nerve 1, 2, and 8. This is a unipolar neuron. It has a cell body and only one pole is coming out, which further bifurcates into two. One acts as an axon and the other acts as a dendrite. So the ganglia of the cranial nerve 5, 7, 9, 10 are the unipolar neurons. The multipolar neurons have many poles. In this picture, we can see this is the cell body and it has multiple poles. This pole acts as axon and these are the dendrites. That's all for today. Thank you.